Hi everyone, I'm Gary Blank and I want to welcome you to another parent-teacher video lesson from the earlygiftedmanual.com, my free website for homeschooled children 3 to 7 years old and their parents that promotes and develops giftedness at an early age. And as all these videos are designed to work in conjunction with the program on my website, I urge you to click on the URL link in the description box below to check out the complete curriculum that I am offering to you and your child. Welcome everyone to lesson 2, and in this lesson I will show you 4 different activities that you can do with your child to bolster his or her understanding of the letter sounds and letter recognition. And the first of these is called the memory match game with letters, and all you will need to play this game are 2 sets of lowercase letter cards, and here I have some out here on the table. And these can be homemade. You can make these from, well, I made them from poster board, which is an excellent material to use because it's fairly stiff. It holds up well. And these cards I made are 2 inches by 2 inches. 2 inches square, and I used a black marker to write the letters on the cards. And it is important that the cards must be thick, because if you try to write the letter on like a piece of paper and turn it over, the ink bleeds right through, and that will defeat the purpose of the game. So use something thick enough where the ink won't bleed through to the back, or you can see the letter from once we turn them over here, and you'll see that in a minute. All right, so let's start with 8 pairs of letters, 16 cards total. And to start out with, this game can be played with up to 4 players, but to start out with, let's just do it with you and your child working together. And as you can see, I've shuffled the cards and I've turned them over and I placed them in a grid, and with the letters oriented to you and your child. Well, what do I mean by that? To start out the game, you and your child should be sitting next to each other. So if either of you turns over a card, for example, like this, the letter will be facing you. It won't be sideways, upside down. So that's important because it'll take a while before your child will be able to recognize letters from any orientation. So make sure you set out the cards in that manner. All right, let's talk about the procedures and the rules. Not just for this memory match game, which is with letters, but for any memory match game you might play. And it's a turn-taking game for 2 to 4 players. And like I said, you'll be starting out with just you and your child. And the object is to find the pairs or the matches. So let me show you what I mean. And you will take the first turn, you the parent, because you want to model the proper way to play this game with your child. So you will flip over a card. Let's see. And when you flip over the card, part of the rules for this game is you say the letter sound. So you flip over the card and you say, And then you want to think out loud. So your child understands how all this is working. You might say, well, I want to find the other, I wonder where it's at. And of course, at this stage of the game, you're going to have to take a guess. And let's say you guess here, and you say, oh, does that look like a match to you? I have a and a and do those 2 letters or sound pictures look the same? And of course your child will say no. So you will turn those tiles back over since you did not get a match. So this procedure I've just showed you here, it's very important to use that. You don't want your child picking up cards, or sometimes I've seen kids do this where they're peeking for reasons I don't understand. Maybe they don't want you to see it. Or sometimes I've seen kids pick up two at once. The procedure is very clear. You pick up one and turn it over, pick up another and turn it over. All right. Okay, so now it's your child's turn, and of course give her any assistance she might need. And let's see, what might she do here? Perhaps she'll turn this one over, and then of course she'll say duh, duh. And then she has to find the other pair, the match. And perhaps she turns this one over and says puh, puh. And she says to herself, duh, puh. Those aren't the same sounds. And look at those two letters. They don't look alike. So she did not find a match. Back over go the cards. And now it's your turn. And maybe you'll do this. And then you think to yourself, oh, I know where the other is, because that's come up before. I remember its location. And you do this. And yes, you have made a match. So you get to take those two cards and put them off to the side here. And the rules of the game are, if you find a match, your turn continues. So maybe you might want to try this. Let's see here. Duh. No match there. They don't sound the same. They don't look the same. And your child may be, and that's the end of your turn, and your child may be jumping out of her seat because now she thinks she knows where a match might be, and she does this. Duh. Duh, look, I got a match, he or she says, and they're thrilled, and perhaps his or her pile is over here. And the game proceeds in that manner. Once again, I want to remind you that if you do find a match, your turn continues. And sometimes these kids really get on a roll and can really clean off the table of cards pretty quick. So the game ends when all of the cards have been selected. So that's how you play the memory match game with letters. And as a bonus lesson, let's say, the game is over, all the cards have been selected. Both you and your child can count your cards, so that's a nice counting exercise you can throw in. And then, to introduce a little bit of vocabulary and maybe a little bit something of a higher order thinking, you could have your child count the pairs, which of course is very different than counting the cards. It'll be half as many as the cards. And for an extension of this activity, to make it a bit more advanced, there are several things that you can do. One thing is you can just ignore the orientation of the letter, because your child and any other children that might be playing in the game, let's say you have 4 kids playing, they will get so good at recognizing the letters that they can recognize them sideways, upside down, etc. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do, obviously, is put out more cards, more pairs. So the grid will get larger. This was a 4x4 grid. You could go 5x5, 6x6, just about anything up to, in this case, lowercase alphabet letters, you could go up to 52 cards. So there's another way. You could have different letter groupings. Let's say your child is having trouble recognizing certain letters. You can use just those. Or you might want to use just letters that have curves, or any way you would want to group them. You could also add capital letters once your child begins studying the capital letters, so that will make it a little more challenging. And finally, to really mix it up, you can even add number pairs in there. So they're looking at letters and numbers. So there are a few ways you can extend the activity. Now let me show you a game that I call Letter Sound Bingo. And you will need the Letter Sound Bingo printable. This is it right here from the printables section of the Early Gifted Manual. And while you're at it, print several copies. That way you can make up several different cards. And you will need a marker, like a black marker, and the reason you need the marker is to do this. Let me bring this in here. As you can see, I've written in some of the letters in the 8 boxes. You will need game pieces, and that could be just about anything. And today I'm using these pennies, which you can place on the letters. And finally, you'll need a set of letter cards, and we already talked about these previously in this lesson. You'll need all 26 of the lowercase letters, and as you can see, this top one here, it's QU, because in the English language, really those two letters always go together and they make the sound Q. So QU. All right. So this game is a typical bingo game. To start out with, it can just be you and your child, but of course, like all bingo games, you can add more players, so more kids can join in and play. And you can introduce this game when your child has studied at least 8 letters, because there's 8 boxes on this particular card. So you can actually introduce this game pretty early on. Your child really only has to know 8 letters. All right, well, like I said, it's a typical bingo game, so it will have the typical bingo procedures and rules to it. You, the parent, will be drawing the cards and calling out the letter sounds, not the letter names, the letter sounds. And I think for demonstration purposes, I'm only going to use this one card, and let's say that this is your child's card. So you can start out like all bingo games. First of all, these cards, you don't want your child to see the letter, so you're not showing him or her the letter, you're just giving the sound. That way, they have to pay attention to the sound and match it up with the letter here on the card. So that's important. All right, I'm going to put these off to the side for that reason. And the first one I'm looking at here is the letter that stands for the sound G, G. And you could say to your child, okay, do you see G, the sound picture or the letter that stands for the G sound? And she might say, oh, yes. And she'll pick up the marker here and put it right on G. But if she doesn't, of course, you can do that forward and show her how to do it. So we're off and running here. Next sound is B, B, B. And she's looking and looking and looking, and she says, well, I don't see it. And you could say, well, yes, because we only have 8 letters here, and there are 26 letters in the alphabet, so some of the letter sounds that I'm saying you will not see on the card. So that's obviously an important distinction to make. So let's keep on going here. Next one is I. And she'll say, oh, yes, I see it. And one thing you can do, I haven't mentioned this yet, is when she places the marker down on that sound picture or letter, she should also repeat the sound, I, Yeah. Okay. How about another one? And hopefully she will find that. Of course, if she doesn't, you can gently help her out to correct any mistakes she might make. Next sound you can call it out is k, k, k. And she's looking, or he's looking, and they say, well, I don't see it there. Don't see k, and that's a good thing, because k is not on that card. All right. Let's see, how about just a couple more? F, 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 f. And she will look or he will look and say, no, I don't see the sound picture for that sound. And maybe let's just do one more here, or maybe two more. You draw a card and the sound is t, t, t. And he says, yes, I see it. And he repeats the sound t, 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 right there. And I think we've gone far enough because you get the idea. So it's just a typical bingo game, and your child should be able to pick up on the rules fairly quickly. Bingo could be anything you want it to be. It might be 4 across, or it might be filling in all 8 boxes on the card with a marker, whatever marker you might be using. So that's the game of letter sound bingo. And if you want to make it, extend the activity, make it a little more challenging for your child, you can make your own cards with larger grids. This is what I call a 2x4 grid, 8 total. You could make a card with a 3x3, 4x4, 5x5 grid, not any larger than that because there aren't enough letters to cover it. And of course, once you make your own little master and draw it up, then you can make copies from that. And also, once your child starts studying capital letters, of course you can add capital letters to the mix, and you can even throw some numbers in there to really make it interesting. Of course, you won't be giving number sounds. You can actually say the number if you throw numbers in there. So that's letter sound bingo, and it's a great activity to give your child lots of practice with matching letter sounds to their corresponding letter, or what we like to call the sound picture. I call this next activity Feel the Letters, and here's what you'll need to do Feel the Letters. This box here, I like to call this the Feely box, and as you can see, it's just a simple smaller size box. This is probably the outside limit in terms of large size. You can make it a little smaller if you want. That's totally up to you. And as you can see, I've cut an opening in the top, just large enough for a child's hand to get through it. Obviously, you can see mine's a little tight because it's designed. This box is designed for a child, but we can work around that. So once you do that, make sure you tape up all the edges, and you're ready to go with your Feely box. Your child might even want to decorate it. That's up to him or her. So that's the Feely box. And you will also need a set of magnetic letters. And you can find a link to purchase these magnetic letters in the materials section at the end of the literacy unit in the early gifted manual. So as you can see, I've chosen, I don't know, maybe there's 10 of these magnetic letters there. And what's nice about these magnetic letters is they have depth. So your child can get his or her hands on them and actually feel the letters, and I'll show you what I mean by that here in just a second. So these are the letters I've chosen to put in. Of course, you can choose whatever letters you want, or how many you want. You might want to start out with, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of the first letter sounds that your child is learning. So you take the letters, put them in the box, and here's how you do feel the letters. And of course you will model the activity for your child, and you could say, well, look, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put my hand in the box, and I'm going to pick up one of the letters, and I'm going to feel it and try to guess which letter it is. And I'm feeling, and I'm going to guess that's T. And I'm going to pull it out, and yes, it is the letter or the sound picture T. So it's as simple as that. And you can let your child go at it from this point, and he or she might put her hand in there. And sometimes, be aware of this, the child will want to feel around and try to pick up different ones to find an easy one or whatever. So you got to make it clear to your child that he or she puts their hand in. The first one he touches is the one he picks up. He can't peek inside the box or pull his hand out. He has to feel it while his hand is in the box. And he's feeling, ooh, this is a very difficult one, even for me. And let's say your child guesses G, G, G. And in fact, he guessed right, and he should be very proud of himself. That's a pretty tough one there. G. So let's do maybe one more just to kind of solidify it here. Your child puts her hand in the box, picks up the first one, keeps her hand down in the box, doesn't peek over into the opening, feels it, and she says, well, I think that's eh. And yes, she guessed right. It is eh. So it's as simple as that. That's how you play feel the letters. And of course, you're using letter sounds, not letter names. It's a great sensory method of learning the various letter shapes and sounds. So a wonderful activity for that. And if you want to extend the activity a little bit, make it a little bit more advanced, of course you can use any letter grouping you want, or as many letters as you want to put in there. It's totally up to you. Make sure you want to challenge your child. And of course, once your child learns capital letters, you can put some capital letters in there, and you can even put in some numbers. So you can make it as challenging as you would like for your child. And finally, let me show you a letter sorting activity that you can do with your child. And what you will need to do this activity, the letter sorts printable, and you can get this from the printable section in the Early Gifted Manual. And you will also need a set of lowercase magnetic letters, and we've already used those and talked about those here earlier in the lesson. And the nice thing about the set I recommended that you purchase is it has multiples of each letter, so you could put out lots of letters up here if you want to do that. And here's how you do this activity. As you can see, I placed some letters here at the top of the table. How many? Well, that's up to you. You could put a lot or a few, but I would say at least 20, so your child will have some choices, and you'll see what I mean by that here shortly. And of course, all the letters, I have oriented them so you and your child who is sitting next to you can see them in the proper manner. There's nothing upside down or anything like that, and of course that's important. All right, so you will start out by modeling the activity, and we're going to be working off of some directions here on the letter sorts printable. And it says, do these with lowercase letters. The first one is letters with circles. So you would tell your child, okay, I'm going to go fishing. You could use that saying if you want. Into the pond here, or the bank of letters, and I'm looking for all the letters that have circles. And here we go. You pull this one out, and always saying each letter sound as you pull out the letter. And you could say, look, that has a circle in it, yes. Yeah. And of course that has a circle in it. How about D? D has a circle in it. And of course you can keep, he or she can keep going on, and you could perhaps work together the first time you go through this here, and try to find all or as many of the letters with circles you can. And let's try another one here. First of all, let's put these back so we keep a nice big pool of letters up here. The next possibility here, letters with curves. So you can tell your child, okay, look up there in the letter bank, in the letter pond, and see how many letters you can pull out that have curves. And of course, the ones we just pulled out, the ones that have circles would count, but let's pick a few more here. Let's see. And of course there's a few more here, but you get the idea. And another thing I'd like to point out with you is you could take this even a step further. You could for example, you and your child could look at these 3 letters and you could compare the letters. Of course, they all have curves in them, and you can point them out, or you could ask your child, well, show me the curves, and she'll run her finger there across the curved parts of the letters. And you could say, well, let's look at these 2. They both have curves, but you know, what's different about them? And hopefully your child will be able to look at those and say, well, look, has 2 humps like this, 2 curves, and only has 1. Or perhaps you might want to compare these 2, and you could ask him, well, what's the difference between those 2 letters there? They look almost the same. And if he has a good eye, he will look and say, well, there's and has a stem or a top to it that goes much higher than So those are great things to do. It helps to really teach the child the attributes and all the details of the letters. All right, we put them back up here in our bank or pond or whatever you want to call it. I'll just show you a few more here quickly. Letters with straight lines only. T. O. K. How about letters that are tall? And of course, that would be anything that goes up to when you're doing handwriting, up to that top line. So, of course, there's a lot of those. D. T. O. And of course, we could go on. How about letters with tails? And of course, that's anything that goes below the handwriting baseline. And here we have Y. Let's see, what else do we have here? I'm looking. G. And here's J. And maybe just a couple more here quickly. Letters with crosses. X. And T. How about letters with dots? And let's see, I think I see two of them in there. I, J. So that's pretty much how you do the activity letter sorts. And the wonderful thing about this activity is it really gets your child to look closely at the letters, at their attributes, and at all the details of the letters so they can discriminate between their shapes. And at this point, your child might ask, well, why are some of the letters blue and some are red? And that's a great question. You could say, well, yeah, that's a great question. And you could tell her that he or she will soon find out in an upcoming activity that you will do together called morphing words.